People are slowly becoming slaves to their image. With magazines, social media, celebrities, fashion blogs, the next Jordans, we become pawns in the world's big game of image. Self-perception and how we view the people surrounding us are present in our everyday lives. This forces many to be enslaved by their image, finding themselves looking in the mirror on an excessive basis and saying, OMG, what do I got on? Way too often. Can image turn into self-destruction? Is there any way to prevent that? This is definitely not anything new. People have been obsessed with themselves, either intentionally or unconsciously, since early days. A clear example of this would be slavery. They were forced to define themselves by the color of their skin in many instances, and many accounts. Their masters would simply view them as profit, objects, and not know anything about them outside of their pigment, which is truly a shame. Those circumstances affected the slaves on a very deep level. They were never praised, let alone recognized for the positive attributes that lie within. There are an abundance of slaves that were extraordinary considering the work they did for the slaves around them, such as Nat Turner, who while still enslaved led uprising to get the justice that slaves deserved back home, James Somerset, a slave that traveled with his master and used this opportunity to meet with anti-slavery units to help his people back home, and William Harvey Carney, a black soldier that fought with the same efforts for whites, despite how badly he'd been treated prior to his combat. Yet, they still had the same conditions as other slaves, despite their amazing accomplishments, just because they were black. As a whole, they were despised because of the color of their skin. It was often mentioned by slave masters and other spectators of certain events that they deserved the conditions that they were in, regardless of who they were on the inside. Imagine being heavily judged based on the amount of melanin in your body. Earlier, I mentioned that slaves were mostly viewed as profit. Their masters would benefit financially from the work that they put forth, therefore being viewed as a source of income. The slaves would work countless hours of labor for their masters, only to receive little to no recognition for what they did and who they were. They would know how much money their slaves put in their pocket for sure, but were unsure of what their names even were. Slave auctions are examples of how they were viewed. Their exterior characteristics were judged by spectators, and they were auctioned off. Here is an image of what your average slave auction would look like. White men standing around in suits, judging the men and women that stood upon the podium, looking for their next source of profit. Being viewed as only a profit added to their misery, and made them ignore the traits that they had on the inside. However, this all turned around when freedom came in the small doses it was given, and as they slowly but surely escaped oppression. When freedom rang, they could properly be viewed as actual people. They were praised as individuals and slowly began to embrace what was on the outside and on their interior. An illustration of this would be the Harlem Renaissance, a period of time where blacks could express themselves through the art and writing that they put out for the world to see, and also appreciate life for the things that go beyond the surface. Commonly known figures of this period would be Langston Hughes and Romare Bearden, who are prime examples of what role models and great artists should be, and show that embracing whatever color you are brings forward a new sense of confidence. Another example of the embracement of yourself, inside and out, would be Lupita Nyong'o, a young African-American producer and actress. When growing up, she had no role models to admire. She searched near and far to find someone alike to her that she could look up to. Now, a role model isn't based on what you look like, but instead what you're doing positively and the good vibes you're sending out to the people in all of you. A sense of hatred grew within her when she found no role models alike to her in her childhood. She was constantly surrounded by what people praise as beauty in the media, and she was unable to find that beauty in herself. She was not a white woman with long hair and a perfect figure, and wasn't able to see herself as beautiful. She came to a realization, and I quote, "You can't eat beauty. It doesn't feed you." This goes to say that beauty, however people perceive it, isn't essential in everyday life. Makeup and fashion can only cover up what is lying within and can only go so far. All the superficial things alike to those are unimportant. She is now a role model for the young girls and women struggling to define their beauty within. She not only spreads the message that you must embrace the beauty within before you can appreciate what's on the outside, but that image is entirely superficial, which was said in her Essence speech. She is now thoroughly praised because of how she is setting an example for people around the globe. What is causing the failure of people embracing their natural selves worldwide? The Body Project, a study conducted in the early 2000s, states that even children young as 4 and 5 had a set idea on how you're supposed to look due to the messages executed by the media and simply the world around them. It doesn't take long for a 4-year-old to pick up that orange doesn't really match with anything, and that certain things are completely out of style, especially if your name is Blue Ivy or Northwest. Those children were Louis Vuittons before their first words. If it begins this young, this strong and powerful outlook about image, it can only get worse. The study also mentions that the combination of opinions of others and the desperate need to be accepted by the people in your everyday environment evolves into self-hatred, which is frankly an unhealthy and awful feeling. It's a shame under those circumstances, indeed, but what is the excuse for the modern-day world? We look at each other based on what we are wearing and whether we're keeping up with the Kardashians or the Joneses. Although easier said than done, you must look outside your closet, look past your credit cards, put down the magazines, skip the makeup process for one day, tune out what people say about you, and turn what is within into something priceless. Would you rather be changing your style or changing the world? In my 16 years of living, I found that image isn't everything. I found at the age of 6 that it's okay to wear boots during the summertime, regardless of what people say. I spent my weekends at soup kitchens instead of shopping malls at age 9. When I was 11, I didn't want makeup or Tiger Beat or people. I wanted time, or maybe even a dictionary. Just because a person chooses to express themselves in an extreme way does not mean that they have an extreme personality, says Suzanne Colasanti, a young author and illustrator. I'm trying to gear towards the fact that there's way more to yourself than what you can buy or hide your face under. We are a world built on materialistic things, so it makes sense that people are so connected to them. People can barely keep their fingertips off the keyboard to stop and smell the roses. It's hard to find yourself in the materialistic things that life has to offer because they are so temporary. 5 minutes later, that Versace t-shirt that you've been dying to get will be out of style, and you'll be crying because you just spent $1,000 on a t-shirt. Likewise, people's opinion have the same effect. It's easy to change what someone thinks about you, but yet their opinions do not change who you are. Martha Graham says, "What people think of you is really none of your business. You're moving your own game pieces in your game called image, and you're eventually going to gain victory." Thank you.